So a few years ago, I was standing on the border of Thailand and Burma in a dark, dirty brothel. And I was about to have the most important Jewish experience of my life. As a bit of context, I was leading an American Jewish World Service trip of young adults and college students, and we were working with an NGO that provided agricultural development work and health services to people in that region, including the girls in this brothel and the people working in the factory down the road. Now, if you don't know that much about what democracy is like in Burma, basically the way it has worked is that only some of the people get to vote, and then whoever they elect is put under house arrest for 15 or 20 years, and that's democracy in Burma. The military ran the country, and they would round up minority folks and make them go and work in factories and on government projects. And the soldiers and the men running these factories also felt that they were entitled to have sex whenever they wanted, and that was the reason for these brothels. So we were there learning the stories of these girls and their experiences and sharing our own. And there was this one girl. She was a 15-year-old Muslim girl from northern India, and she had been trafficked for sex since she was 13 years old in India and then Burma, now on the border of Thailand. And she asked me a question. She said, "Are there places like this where you come from?" And I could tell she wasn't just asking because she wanted to know as a fact. What she was really asking me was, is there a place that I could go and be safe? If I was to escape here, with all that we had told her about our lives, with all of the wealth and privilege we had. I mean, we had traveled 10,000 miles to have a conversation with these girls. If she was able to get to where we were from, would she be safe? And I wanted to lie to her because I knew that in Seattle, where I was from, and even right here today in Chicago, there were girls just as young as her being sold for sex. And there were people being forced through violence and threats into factories like the ones right down the road from where she was. And she had shared so much with us that I felt like I had to be honest. And I said, yes, even where we come from, there are places like this. And I felt horrible about it because I had known. It wasn't something that just dawned on me when I got to Thailand, but I had never done anything about it. And so I decided when I got home that I would take some action so I could have a different answer in the future. And I started volunteering with an organization called Seattle Against Slavery. Not long after that, I was invited to read from the Haftorah Isaiah on Yom Kippur. Now, I'm not a particularly religious person in my upbringing. I had never had an aliyah before or anything like that. So this was really the first time that I had tried to examine these texts at all. And I was stopped dead in my tracks when I got to these words of Isaiah 58:6. Is not this the fast that I have chosen? To unlock the chains of injustice and to untie the cords of the yoke, to let the oppressed go free and to break off every yoke. Fighting human trafficking was Jewish. This was the most important spiritual day of the year. And yet, the prophet of God was saying, it is as important to free the oppressed, if not more so, than all of the prayer that you're doing and all the fasting that you're doing. And in fact, when you're trying to get yourself written in the book of life and you have all these other things that you do, if you haven't acted on behalf of the oppressed people around you, none of the rest of it matters. This was not the Judaism that I had become accustomed to, and I was ready to hear about it because of the experience that I just had. But it's honestly not something that I should be that surprised by. We define ourselves as a people who have come out of slavery. This is our cultural narrative. Because we were once slaves in the land of Egypt is the most repeated phrase in Torah. But the question is there a reason for that? Is that preparing us for something? And I think yes. And probably the best way that I have to explain this is there wouldn't be Abraham Joshua Heschel on the bridge with Martin Luther King Jr. without Moses stopping the taskmaster from beating the slave. There wouldn't be the modern state of Israel without our own exodus and freedom from bondage. These are steps in a chain that are supposed to be preparing us for something. And the model that I grew to understand, because again, I hadn't grown up with the education to examine all of these things, was the Karate Kid. Now, stick with me for a second, because if you don't know the story of the Karate Kid, Ralph Macchio wants to learn karate, and he goes to Rabbi Miyagi and asks him to teach him karate. And instead, Rabbi Miyagi tells him, wax the cars. Wax on, wax off. So this is keva, a set of practices that are supposed to train you and prepare you for something. In this case, the All-Valley Karate Tournament. And at the end, when Rabbi Miyagi says, do karate, Ralph Macchio's ready, and he knows karate. As Jews, we're doing the same thing. We're doing practices over and over again, and we're not just doing them so that we have a sense of there's evil in the world and there's good in the world, or we're good as Jews. We're preparing ourselves to act. In Passover, in fact, we try to put ourselves in the experience of being slaves at that moment. We're not just supposed to think about, we were once slaves in the land of Egypt. We're told, imagine yourself as a slave so that you can develop that compassion and you can develop that empathy so that you have an opportunity to act on behalf of others. And our tradition teaches that if you don't do those actions, you're actually just as bad as the people who are doing the evil in the world because you are part of the community that's letting it happen. There's a story that says that God at one point was going to destroy Jerusalem for all of the evil that was happening there. But he told the angels, go and put a mark on the heads of all of the people who have seen the evil and they've struggled with it in their hearts. And one of the angels speaks out and says, God, why are these people being destroyed and these other people are being saved? And God says, because these are wholly evil and these other people are wholly righteous. And the angel says, but God, these people did nothing. They should have been willing to suffer scorn and even blows for your righteous name. And God says, but if they had, nothing would have changed. They wouldn't have stopped anyone. And the angel says, God, you knew that, but did they know that? And God reverses the decree. And the righteous are destroyed along with the wicked for their failure to act. We know that there is slavery in the world today. And yet, as Jews, have we acted to stop it? This point was really driven home for me when Seattle Against Slavery was invited to accept a gift from the Righteous Conversations Project. Now, if you don't know this organization, it's an incredible group of high school students who get together with survivors of the Holocaust. And they talk about social justice issues, and then they make videos that can be shared on the web to help teach people about their call to action. And they had given us a video, so I went to accept it and give a talk. And afterwards, this older woman, Eva, came up to me and she said, I'm a survivor. And it was very emotional. And I said, yes, I know. Thank you for the work that you do with these kids. And she said, no. She shook her head because she knew I didn't understand. She said, I'm a survivor of human trafficking. They made us work. They expected us to work until we died. And it was in that moment that I realized this was not a historical teaching. This was an experience that Jews had had in modern times. That never again wasn't just for the Jewish people. It was for everyone who is in slavery, who is unsafe, who is at risk of being killed for who they were. And so what is it that we have before us? What's the challenge that we're called to address? There are 21 million people in slavery in the world today, in every country in the world, including Israel and the United States. And yet, anywhere where survivors are connecting with people who are willing to help them, anywhere that resources are made available and safety is provided, these incredible survivors of human trafficking are finding ways to freedom. When a path is provided, they find a way to save themselves. And so what can we as Jews do to act on their behalf? Step one, make fighting human trafficking a Jewish calling. Proclaim it to the heavens that this is what Jews do. Say it on the bima and in your yeshiva and in your day schools and Sunday schools. Tell people, we were once slaves and now we make sure that this doesn't happen to anyone. Generation after generation, we're trained for this. Step two, buy righteously. Spending money is a tremendously powerful act in a modern global world. And the way that you spend will choose whether people are exploited in your name or whether freedom is provided to people in your name. And Jews are especially well prepared for this, because for those people who keep kosher, they look for a lot of little marks, hechshers on the things that they buy to tell them if they're doing a righteous thing by buying or something that is less so. You can make purchasing decisions to buy things that say fair trade certified or equal exchange or made in a free world. And the way that you buy can literally bring freedom to people who wouldn't have it otherwise. And step three, connect to anti-human trafficking organizations. All of you have, wherever you live, an organization that is working on behalf of victims of human trafficking. And a simple internet search will tell you who those people are and how to get in touch with them. And then walk alongside them. Ask them what they need from the Jewish community. Ask them what we can do to help raise up their work and make sure that no one where you live is exploited or abused. We were once slaves, and now we can help other people out of slavery. Imagine it. A Judaism that inspires people. A Judaism that calls upon all that we have prepared to do and takes action so that others can be saved and don't have to go through the horrible things that we have been through. I believe truly that we can make a difference in the lives of the people who are being exploited in human trafficking. And that's why I also believe if you do one Jewish thing, it should be to fight human trafficking. Thank you.